Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Black Atlas Radio. And today we have the pleasure of interviewing not only an artist, but someone that a lot of people who we've interviewed on our show look up to and see very highly of. You can go ahead and introduce yourself to the camera.
Hi guys, my name is Faye, and I'm the founder of Bliss Urban Art Center, Bliss Dance Company, Hip Hop Hippie Boutique, Bliss Rec Program, and the founder of Words, a night of music, poetry, and dance.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Out of all of those things, where did you start first?
Man, where I started first. Good question. So I started when I first moved out here from the Bay Area. I was 20. So I started out doing the rec program first, and I didn't even have a name for it at the time. I just started teaching classes at the city of Vacaville. Like about a year later, I started teaching for the city of Fairfield, and then a year after that, I created Bliss Dance Company. And we were pretty much just like renting from different venues for a long time, way before I opened Bliss. I opened Bliss in 2011. I created my boutique in 2015. Words has its own story. I created that in 2011, but there was a bunch of events I did prior to that led me to create Words.
Right.
So I'll go back. I'm gonna jump. Sorry.
No, yeah.
So like with the poetry stuff, when I first moved out here, I knew I wanted to create events and network with people. When I first moved out here, I didn't know anybody because my parents had sold their house in the Bay, moved out here. We didn't have family or friends, so I was literally just like a deer in headlight, like trying to meet people. I was at Solano College. I was networking with finding artists and finding dancers and getting into any program I could. So like about 6 months before I created Bliss, shortly after I've already started dance classes, I was like, I want to put on a show. And so it was called the first annual hip hop extravaganza. And this was in 2003. It was actually so lit. There was like 500 people there. It was lit.
Was it like around Christmas time?
It was.
Why was
like
it extravaganza?
I don't know. That's just what I called it. So like,
sounds crazy.
It was the summer of 03. I'll never forget it because it was back during the MySpace days. So I was booking artists through MySpace, and that's how I met T. Carrier, because I used to manage him. Back then, he was Smoothie Baby. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I first met him. He was like 19. But I had my recreational students there, and I had a whole bunch of local artists that I didn't even know, but I was just booking, through MySpace and just meeting them at Solano College and whatever else. And there was such a long lineup, and everyone brought their fan base, so it ended up being a packed house. Like, people were standing in the back, and I was like, Three Oaks Community Center.
Hey, where is that?
Right here in Vacaville on
Oh,
Alamo.
no.
Yeah.
Is it by the library?
Yeah, no, there's like a McDonald's and there's a KFC over there.
Okay.
Oh.
Across the street
I know
from,
where
like,
that is. I don't know where
there's a little gym over there across the street.
Okay.
How old did you say you were at that time?
I was 20 or 21, or maybe even, it was 21 because I hadn't even started Bliss Dance Company yet. Okay. So all I had at the time was my 2 programs for the city of Vacaville, city of Fairfield. And I was getting ready to create Bliss at the time. So I had that show. It was a good turnout. So I was like, okay, great. I want to do more of these. Mm-hmm. And then 6 months later, roughly, I was like, I think I want to create a dance company. I have all these talented students that are committed to my programs. I want to do something. And at the time, I was like, this is just going to be community-based. We're not trying to compete. Let's just do it for fun. I love working with kids. I always knew I wanted to do that. Because at the time, I think I was still in college for social work because I'm thinking like, oh yeah, this is going to help me work with kids. But I realized my purpose working with kids wasn't through social work, it was through dance. I figured that out later. But created Bliss. Again, it was like just a community thing. And then I started doing the hip-hop extravaganza. I'm laughing now because we don't call it that no more.
Was there a part 2 to the
hip-hop
extravaganza?
It literally lasted till this day, but we call it something different now. It's called our summer showcase.
Okay.
But through the years, it changed. Like, it was like a variety show where we had the poets, bringing it back. We had poets, singers, dancers, rappers, comedians, different types of musicians. And then eventually through the years, it changed to where when I eventually created Words, I made that the variety show and made the summer show just for Bliss Dance Company.
Okay.
But that show never stopped. I've had that summer show since 03.
It's still going.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just now like switched up a bit, right? Cool. So I had my first like partially poetry slam in that event, and then a couple years later, I rented at the Missouri Street Theater, the little black box theater. Have you guys been there? In Fairfield?
Is it
Not
like
the Red
kind
Room?
of by Pepper Bellies?
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty
I think
much.
I know where that's
yeah,
at.
I did one there in 2005, and it was packed, but it was a small venue. And all of my theater friends participated in that one. Then a couple years later, I finally got a space where I was subletting for Bliss because we didn't have this spot yet. It was like '07. I actually just found the flyer. I have to show you how funny this is. That we called the event Listen. Check it out. Listen.
Oh. That looks like 2007.
Yeah, and I had to
That's
find
crazy.
that flyer because I was like, I know they're going to ask me about like the start of the poetry stuff.
Right.
So I held that event at the old studio we used to rent from called Studio of the Arts, which is like literally just down the street. After that, I stopped holding them there, and then as soon as I opened these doors, what was that? That was 07, 2011, like 4 years later? I was like, as soon as I get my own studio, I'm doing a monthly event. And I did. So we started Words in 2011. I named it Words because I was like, I just want it to be like a one-word, simple thing that represents everything.
Was it mostly poetry at first?
At first, yeah, it was like the main headliner was always a poet, but there was like variety in between, like all the acts. Yeah.
Good.
And we used to do it monthly, and then I realized that it wasn't enough of a built-up anticipation for the show, so I switched it to every other month. So since 2011, I don't know how many we've had, but 2011 and 2012 we had one every month, I believe.
Okay.
And then after that, we switched it up to every other month, and we've not missed a month, like missed a time.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's been going on for 7 years.
And like roughly how many people usually show up to those?
In
Has
the
it gotten
beginning,
more
yeah.
over the years?
Yeah, in the beginning it was hard. It was all word of mouth. I don't do a lot of marketing as far as like spending money on marketing because I just let people find out about things on their own, which has been really beneficial for my dance program. So I figure it was kind of going to be the same. Yeah. Social media has just been the main, but in the beginning it was really small. Some shows I had like 10 people, 20, 30, and I let it stay that way for a few years. And then I want to say the last 3 years, it started picking up to where when these newer cats were coming around, like Spilla and like Opine and Russell and all them cats were starting to like do their music around that time.
Shout out to Razzle.
Yeah, all of them. Did I say his name wrong?
No.
it's
I always do that.
I call him Razzle.
Like all these younger cats were starting to do their music around that time when they were like submitting, and I was like, yeah, you guys can perform. They were bringing all the younger generation, and then all of a sudden it started to get more popping.
Right. Like
So it was around that
snowballing.
time. Yeah, like Jerron and like, all my young homies or all my like sons, they all started doing their thing, and then it generated more and more people, became more word of mouth. Now we never have under 60. Which is
dang.
decent for this venue,
Yeah, definitely.
And sometimes we fill it up to close to 100 depending on who's performing, So it gets pretty full in here, and it's a great event because we say no kids, but we let teenagers come. But it's a good chance for people to just have their freedom of expression and not have to feel obligated to censor themselves or feel like they can't say what they want to say or do what they want to do. Because I'm all about that. Like, do what you're feeling in your heart. Don't just do something because you were told to do it a certain way. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So you've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Is it hard to balance out that and your life at home?
Yeah.
Yeah, really?
I mean, yes
or is
and
it
no.
all just like
because it's become all one in
Right.
a way. Like, this is my life.
Yeah.
I have 4 nephews and my family my immediate family that lives here in Vacaville. The rest of my family's in the Bay, but as far as like making time, it's definitely hard because I don't feel like I make enough time for even my immediate family who lives in town sometimes, but that's the thing I struggle with. But other than that, what was your question?
Is it hard to find?
Yeah, oh yes.
One
it
second,
is.
let me pause this while
Okay.
we restart. Is it hard to balance out this and your life at home, basically?
Yeah, kind of, because I don't, I'm not. It's not like I'm married with children, so I'm chilling. So like I have that cushion to where I can just up and dip. Like I travel a lot too, so I'm able to do that, and I have amazing staff here at Bliss. So if I'm like I need to leave for a week, I can be like call this person, blah, 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 and they can just cover for me easy. So. That's a blessing. So I'm able to move pretty smoothly without having any issues like that. But what's harder to juggle is like all the things that I do with work, more so than anything, because there's putting on words or putting on we have 2 annual dance shows a year that are our major ones, and then we put on 7 of those recreational shows I was telling you about.
Yeah.
On top of that, and we do about 7 words a year, 7 rec shows, 2 annual shows, and then we do a bunch of community events in between that, and then we compete all year in between that.
Do you put all those events together yourself, or is
the ones I produce? Yeah, I pretty much do them 100% on my own,
okay.
unless I have my awesome staff that do certain things. But as far as producing it and putting it on, yeah, all that's me.
And so for the teachings, like how often are you guys teaching a class here? Or
so we got classes pretty much every day. I condensed my schedule down to where I'm now only teaching Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which is a blessing. Mm-hmm. So when I do need to travel, it's not too much of an inconvenience on people. Mm-hmm. But I have staff that's teaching here all the other days too. So all of my staff are homegrown. So everybody used to be a student of mine first. And that's what makes it really work, because they know what it was to be a student. They know what is expected of them as staff, and they're loyal and they're just down for the cause. So it makes it easy because I can trust them with my life.
Right,
they're
it
amazing.
creates like a good family environment.
Right.
And
For sure. Shout out to my Bliss directors, so.
Shout out.
For
that
sure.
camera's clear, right? You made sure it was
I was still focused on it.
I hope it makes me look extra cute today.
So, how long have you yourself been dancing?
Probably since I was 6 or 7. I was self-taught, so I'm an 80s baby. I was born in 81, so.
You're so lucky.
Yeah, I was part of all the cool
80s.
stuff in the 90s. I was a young kid in the 90s living that whole life. So, no, I feel you. But I was self-taught. I used to watch like CMC Music Channel and Paula Abdul and Janet Jackson and watch videos and all that. So I was self-taught as a kid.
Learned back then?
I feel like everybody did, because we didn't even have hip-hop dance classes. They weren't called that back then. Like the first dance class my mom ever let me take, and it was like only for a few months. She was not about that life. Was it was called jazz funk, yeah. And it was just like we would dance to pop songs, but we would do jazz dancing.
Okay.
So it wasn't even
more like that thing.
Yeah, the classical tap jazz ballet were the more jazz funk was like on the verge of turning into hip hop dance. Yeah, that's what, but they still offer that now. It's dope.
How music turned, and
right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I did that once when I was probably 10, and then stopped, and then I just continued to teach myself how to dance. And I think when I got into junior high, my cousin convinced me to do cheer. So shout out Juliana. And so I did cheer in 8th grade, and then I continued all through high school, because I'm like, if this is the only way I'm going to be allowed to dance, because my parents won't sign me up, then I might as well just keep cheering, right? It wasn't until, I got my first job and went to college that I was like, oh, I'm paying for this? Oh, I'm putting myself in dance. Okay. Yeah. So at that point, I was doing it myself, so it was pretty cool.
Nice.
But yeah, I was like 7.
Oh, okay. And around, I'm sure you told us already, but when was it that you acquired this studio here?
2011. That was wild, because that whole year of 2010, I was trying to get a place, and I was renting from this martial arts group that was down the street at the time, Ramirez Martial Arts. They ended up getting their own spot too, but I was renting from them for a while, and I was realizing I need my own space. It was getting to a point, because around 2009, when all those dance TV shows were coming out, like ABDC and So You Think You Can Dance and Dancing with the Stars, all of a sudden, dance became a thing for people. It wasn't a thing before that. Yeah, but you know what I mean? It became now like, oh, everyone's doing this on TV, I'm trying to do it. So my numbers went from like 40 company members to 100 in 1 year. It was nuts. And I didn't even do nothing to obtain that. They were just like, dance? Sign her up, which was dope. Yeah. But it got to a point where the popularity, and then we started winning competitions at this time. This was like 5, 6, 7 years in. We started doing good. We started growing. So I was like, okay, I need my own space. I need to be able to set my own schedule. I need to be able to offer more to my students, It's all about them at the end of the day. Like, that's all that matters. So eventually I got a phone call from my broker. He was like, I got you a space. You can make it work. It's really going to work. I was like, you sure? He's like, yeah. And I was like, okay. Went there the next day, signed my lease, quit my day job. Pulled up here and looked around, was like, where am I going to put the mirrors? And then discovered, I was like, okay, we'll put some mirrors on this pillar. We'll make it work. But I had barely seen this spot. I seen it once, and I forgot what it looked like. But I signed my lease anyway, because I was like, I need a space. I need to make it work. Quit my day job. I'm doing it.
How was that feeling when you finally did that?
It was powerful because like the year that I was searching for space, I had a goal. I was like, I was only working for Starbucks at the time. I had so many side hustles, like ever since I was old enough to work. I never worked like a real 9 to 5. I just did a bunch of side hustles, odd jobs, random stuff just to pull money because ever since I was old enough to work, I wasn't getting any financial support anywhere else. So I was literally taking care of myself since like 16. So I was working at Starbucks. I was a barista, and I said this, and this was after I graduated Sac State, and I had a bachelor's degree, and I'm serving lattes. And there's nothing wrong with that. Trust and believe there's nothing wrong with that. But at that time, I was working my ass off so hard. I was like, I just got a degree. And I was like, and I paid for it. Like the whole time I was in college. And so I was just feeling away. So I was like, okay, I'm so ambitious. I'm like, that's it. By the end of this year, I'm getting a studio and I'm putting I set the goal. You have to.
Speak it into existence.
I did. And I just remember one day I was slanging bacon sandwiches and chai lattes, and I was just like, I can't fucking wait. Sorry, you might have to cut that. Okay, I was like, I can't wait. And then the day I signed my lease, it was so powerful. I was like, oh my God, this is really happening. And then fear gets in the way, and we have to remember your mind and your body are two separate things. Like, don't let thoughts come in like that. So I got fearful for a minute, but then I had to switch it and be like, okay, no, I can do this. And then I went to my job and I was like, I'm putting in my 2 weeks, but don't schedule me for the next 2 weeks because I'm not showing up tomorrow.
I would have just been like, I quit. Like,
no, but I wanted to leave respectfully. I was like, I want to leave respectfully.
I did the same thing.
But they messed with me so hard, so it wasn't really. They were like, go ahead, do your thing. It wasn't even a problem.
That's what you said at Rasputin.
At Rasputin, I worked at the Rasputin music store. Shout out to Robin, my manager. She was like cool about it. She was about to make me like a lead there, and I was like, actually,
Shady.
I got another job. And I have to quit today.
Right now.
I'm actually leaving.
She was like, this is your last shift.
I'm actually not clocking.
You want to go ahead and pay me my last check?
And she was like, are you serious? I was like, yeah, damn near. I can't do both.
Yeah.
But
damn.
Definitely from the outside looking in and seeing for us it's mostly just, for everybody it's mostly just social media, seeing things. We can definitely see not just progress, but like everybody posts about Bliss. Everybody posting about
it reached us, and we don't even live out here.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Well, we live in Fairfield.
But that's
like
5 minutes away.
I feel like,
I know what you mean though.
Yeah,
everybody growing up, there's definitely a whole bunch of people I've seen going talking about the performances and things before Twitter and Instagram, but Facebook days, say videos of one of my friends dancing. I was like, oh shit, I didn't even know about that.
Oh really?
That's dope.
Cool. We had a few people in blank.
Oh, okay.
And Sullivan. But it was pretty cool just to see that and see the environment. I don't know, because when we grew up, there wasn't much to do after school.
Right. Same.
The
They
had the place to be after 3,
and that shit was terrible.
It was pretty terrible. I'm not gonna lie.
There and you were
Shout out to my cousin Lupe who worked there though.
Well, now they got PAL centers and all that.
Yeah,
right
now it was super dope.
But back then,
it was a whole bunch of shit now. But we went to Amy Blank, and Amy Blank was literally the worst school in Fairfield, I'm pretty sure.
No, I don't think it could have been worse.
We're the only school that closed down.
I grew up in Daly City. I have no idea what y'all know.
We went to a school that's no longer
It's literally, it's like a academy now, but it used to be an elementary school.
It was so garbage.
Yeah, it was pretty, it was all right, but they've changed now. They've made a lot of improvements, I think. But Isaiah has a point. We didn't really have an outlet.
And a lot of people say that, and I'm glad that I can offer that because even though Vacaville is a pretty safe community, there are there's so many things kids could be doing.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing for me was when I was creating all my companies and deciding what I wanted to do, I wasn't thinking as a businesswoman. I still don't think as a businesswoman. I'm still technology deficient till this day. I'm oh, you know how to do that? I'll pay you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But during that time, I remember I had mentors, But like that fear thing I was talking about earlier came through, where it was like I was too intimidated to ask people for help or for advice. And I remember as I was coming up, I'm like, can you imagine if I came from a dance family, which I didn't, or if I had friends that were older that had game, imagine how much further along I would be if I had those people. So I always vowed to be that person for everybody that came and asked for advice. Game should always be free. Everybody can eat. Everybody's candle could be lit. It's not going to take somebody else's candle out to light somebody else's. You feel me? So like we can
keep on.
And it's karma. So it's like anytime, even somebody who's like, I want to open my own dance studio. I'm like, okay, well, here's the things I did wrong. Don't do that. Like, I'll tell you straight up, because I'm like, I remember feeling like at some points where like, oh, who do I talk to about this? Let me just figure it out on my own. And I made so many financial mistakes. I made so many mistakes in general with communication, and I was hard-headed back then. I was hot-headed too. I moved here from the Bay Area. Imagine coming from a world of culture to mayonnaise. To mayonnaise. I was like, no offense, but that's how it felt. That's how I felt.
Miracle Town.
I was like, where am I? And then
Hidden Valley.
and the prejudices that I dealt with the city, like me teaching hip hop.
Well,
you
that's
know how many complaints? Like, there's probably hella people out there that don't mess with me, because when I was 22, I would talk shit right back to anybody who would like be offensive towards what I do, because I'm like, everything I do is for the good of the community. I'm not trying to hurt nobody.
Right. That was actually my next point. My next question I was going to bring up is that, or actually not really a question, but I think it's good that we have an outlet that it's also like a creative outlet in Vacaville, because that's like, it's a lot of people are kind of like stiff around here, like
they have been. I think it's starting to get a little more colorful and eclectic. It's becoming more, like the Bay is coming this way, I notice. And so
the prices are coming this way too.
God damn. But when I first moved out here, people were judgy, and I wasn't used to it. Like, I wasn't used to that.
Right.
And I was young. I was 20. And I'm like,
crazy.
I'm a different person today than I was then. I'm still me. Don't get it twisted. But, I'm just a wiser version of, so I look back and I'm like, wow, I made so many mistakes, or I said this to that person, or I should have charged more for that, and I ended up in debt and this and that. And I'm like, well, that's why, like, when the next person comes and says, I'm trying to get my music career kicking off, like, what do I need to do, or whatever advice, I'm quick to be like, let's sit down, let's have a talk, come over, let's have coffee,
Right.
Let me tell you everything I did wrong first.
That's so good, though.
Because it's important.
So helpful, because a lot of us, like even us, we don't know what to do. A lot of
no one really has a platform.
And I didn't do nothing perfect. I don't have all the answers, but I'm like, if I can give you something to help, that's important.
That's perfect.
We need it.
A lot of people need that.
Yeah.
We all do. I still need it.
It's good, though, because this is like one of the first places I think of when you think of trying to get your name out somewhere. There's not a whole lot like that comes to mind really around here,
so, like,
at least.
Oh, like to get your start, like in anything?
To get your start. And,
if you're trying to, like...
Because a lot of, like when you put out a flyer.
Like a showcase.
Yeah, a showcase. When you put out the flyer, and then other people can see the flyer, and just because someone's performing that night, they'll post the whole flyer, and someone's name is on there. And you're like, oh shit, I never knew about that person. I'll go, and then they end up watching them here, and you're like, oh shit.
And then they follow them on social media. There's so many people that have told me that had it not been for the Words event, they would have never whoop, whoop, whoop. And I'm like, wow,
That's crazy.
And I never really thought, you don't really think about it because you do it because you love it,
Yeah.
And then when you hear feedback like that, you're like, dang, then I'm doing it for the right things, That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's good.
How does that make you feel?
Great. That's honestly, like, them trophies, them pieces of plastic don't mean shit.
Right.
The, like, clout, like, as a dance team, we're amazing. Don't get it twisted. We win trophies. Let me look at the camera when I say that. Like, all of that, really, like, at the end of the day, doesn't matter. What matters to me more are those relationships. Like, I tell that to people all the time. Like, my students, like, I give it to them real. Like, they learn life lessons here. They are not just here learning some 8 counts. I can care less. The 8 counts are, like, the thing that brings them in. Once they're here, they're a part of me. Like, I make them a part of my life. I teach them about life, And so that relationship that I have with my students means more to me than the award at a competition. Any day.
Have you, always been that way, like, really caring?
Yeah, I've always loved kids, and I always knew when I was young I wanted to work with kids. Like, I always knew I wanted to. That's why I thought social work was going to be my thing, because I was like, yeah. Then I started studying that in college, and I was like, my heart hurt. I couldn't stay in that major because I was too sensitive to the topics I was learning.
There's a lot of things
it affected me. And I changed my major to theater and dance because that's what I was already doing. So that's what I got my degree in. And I just realized that I'm like, I just need to take what I know from personal experience, because, you know, we all had tough times growing up, I'm sure.
Right.
And personal experience and just how I love working with kids and applying it through dance.
Right.
Letting that be the therapy, letting this be the safe haven. And for a lot of my students, this really is, because especially this day and age, these kids go through so much on a daily basis that we don't even really know about no more, you know? Cause
that's true.
Like, what we went through as kids was maybe nothing at the time, or because, you know, just certain sensitivities have become more relevant, and everybody is like afraid to be themselves, or they're themselves so much that it, you know, other people feel away, and it's just so much going on that it's like I feel bad for kids in school right now.
Right.
I do.
I feel bad. I also feel like the sensitivity to a lot of matters has changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like anxiety. I feel like that's the biggest thing that's come across overall of this past year. Like, that's the biggest thing that has like impacted people. And a lot of people like even like 5-6 years ago were probably like, it's just, he just acts weird.
Yeah.
He just gets
right,
like that
but now
sometimes.
it's
But
so
now it's something.
like
and we
people
can
are
put a
starting
name
to
on
care
it.
in the
about
80s,
mental
we didn't know
health.
what that
Yeah,
stuff
we
was
can
called.
mental
right.
health. Yeah, like we can work. We can work on something.
And so there's always that fine line of like, is this person just wanting attention, or is this person really going through it?
Right.
I don't take chances.
Never.
Because
That's good.
especially when you hear people like talking about suicide. Don't play with me like with those words. Like, I'm not even, so whether it be for attention or not, you're gonna get that attention from me, because I don't ever want to regret not giving a kid enough attention. You feel me?
Good.
And so I'm also not like with like people, you know, being too soft to where it's like, come on, you know, just, you know, think for yourself. Like, you know how sometimes people allow all this stuff to affect them, not just for attention, but because maybe they don't have control over their mind. And I try to tell these kids at a young age, it took me until I hit my 30s to figure out, like, you have full control of your life. There is no such thing as, that's just how I am. No, that's just how you were yesterday.
Right.
You don't got to be that. Like, so all the things I learned as an adult, I'm constantly feeding to them about, you know, don't be a lamb, be a lion, you know, think for yourself, you know, you're stronger than that. Anxiety is self-given, not hereditary. You know, I have these conversations with them. Like, we do grateful journals here. We talk about things we're thankful for. We do deep therapeutic talks sometimes, you know, and all of that, to me, knowing that like down the line, they're going to, you know, look back and be like, man, that was so helpful. Like I said, means more to me than anything else. So that's what's important. And at the end of the day.
After we said that?
Yeah.
I can feel the time.
You could feel the time. I'm going to close it out with my next question, which is now, it being 2018, the end of 2018, do you think that you've achieved your goal with Bliss and your whole vision, or do you think that there's more to it? Like,
there's a lot more.
Okay.
Yeah, there's so much more. Like, it's endless. I'm like the type to where I'm always thinking of the next thing.
Right.
So I don't ever really get complacent, like with, you know, oh no, I'm good, this is where we at. Like, I eventually either want to get into a new lease somewhere where it's more suitable for my students, or I want to buy a building. Mm-hmm. It's one or the other. I also want to reach out and do programs in other cities. I started touching in New York, but I haven't really continued because I'm obviously so busy with everything going on here. So I have to wait until I get home so tight before I can expand, and I can't do that until the home that we're in is exactly where I want to be.
Right.
So I'm focusing right now on moving into a new space in the next couple of years because I'm still on a lease here, and then expanding programs in other cities, not necessarily opening studios. And there's so many more things I want to do in general. Like, I want to be able to offer other types of classes for the kids, like coping and mental health. And I want to be able to open like a vegan cafe out here, and I want to be able to offer all types of like health related things through my studio, and not just the art shows, but I also want to do more events. It's just producing them all myself is super difficult.
I bet.
But yeah, there's so many things that are always crossing my mind about what I want to do. I'm now hitting our 15th annual showcase in January for Bliss, and I'm like, I've been around 15 years. Like, that's not something to be played with. Like,
that's
if I've lasted this long and I haven't like failed or went in the negative, or like I'm constantly like growing, even at a slower pace. But I'm like, if I'm still around after 15 years, I'm doing something right.
Right.
I'm doing something right with, I had no knowledge to start with. So like now that I have a little bit of knowledge, I'm like, there's so much more I could do with what I know now. Why am I going to stop? So, and plus, just because I'm at a place now where, these kids are at this age, what about the kids that aren't born yet in 20 years? They need something to look forward to.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm getting ready for them.
You mentioned doing this for 15 years.
Yeah.
Well, I'm only 21. Like, that's like...
You were 6.
Yeah, crazy.
That's wild.
So what's the next thing? When's the next word, Terry?
The next words is this month on December 22nd. And
do you have like a website or something you want to plug?
Oh, BlissUrbanArtCenter.com, or on Facebook, just type us in. Bliss Mama Faye on Instagram.
I'll throw all this stuff up
Bliss
there.
Urban Arts Center on Instagram, Twitter, same Bliss Mama Faye, Bliss Urban Arts. Words is on the 22nd. The band that's headlining is called the New Crowns. They're dope. They're from SAC. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna be dope. Then January 26th is my annual showcase, 15th annual. I hope you guys can make it out.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You said January?
January 26th.
26th.
Yep, it's gonna be crazy. We're doing that tribute piece I was telling you about with some of the OGs are coming back.
Shout out to Marquis.
It's pretty dope. That's here in Vacaville. But yeah,
Well, make sure you guys come out if you're in the area, or even if you're not in the area, cop a ticket, come out here.
I'm out here.
Right.
We out here.
Yeah. Just come out here, see all the talent that we got. Check out the interviews with all the people that we've had from here, from the studio. They all mention you a couple of times.
All of them.
Yeah.
Shout out the homies.
Right, real
It
ones.
starts here. It could be your start.
Hit me up.
It could be
It's
you.
love.
We want you.
Hit me up.
Or ad.
Okay.
Anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and we appreciate
Appreciate
the
it.
interview.
It's all good. I appreciate y'all
you
reaching out. This is
inviting
dope.
us into your studio in your home.
It's all good. Mi casa, your casa. What?
Tune in next time, guys.
Right.
At Black Atlas Media.
Thumbs up.
Thanks again. Isaiah's gonna turn the camera
High
off.
five.
All right.